Morning, everybody. It is a beautiful Sunday morning outside. I'm going to jinx it now, aren't I, by saying spring is on its way. But as somebody who is definitely affected by the seasons, it is good to see the sun out and makes you feel like you can actually get more done and everything, doesn't it? So, as of last stream, I think I went through or started going through the template that I'm using for my new album Zodiac. So today I wanted to go over the plugins that I've kind of used historically and a few more that I'm going to be using this time around. Also, some plugins that just come with Ableton and are absolutely fine. You know, there are better or more advanced versions of them, but for what they actually I want them to do, there are definitely some plugins that come stock with Ableton that you can get away with and do the job. So without further ado, let's switch over to Ableton. You should also see that the video quality is better this time around. You was using the defaults before. You'd think I'd know better from gaming, but obviously not. So yeah, the video quality should be a lot clearer this time around. And this is where we left it, right? So if you remember, we had my intro song here, and then my own song here, and then the song I was going to be mixing into over on the right hand side. And I did say something is a bit weird about this setup, which is that my master channel down here doesn't really have anything. And I guess I didn't really go into it why on the last video, but the reason is because this track here, this already released, available on Beatport, you can throw it on the decks song, is already perfect, right? It doesn't need or shouldn't have any additional effects that you are putting on your track affecting it, right? So the only things that are on this particular track here are the EQ3, which I said last time is allowing me to dip the bass and raise up the mids and the highs as you would on the decks, because there are only 3 EQ knobs there. And then there is the FabFilter Pro Q3, which is actually on this screen over here, which is basically just letting me see what is going on in the actual track itself. So yeah, I only have those 2, so they are more for monitoring and getting what I need the track to do in the context of this particular Ableton set, more than doing anything to the actual track itself. And you can see as well, it's the same thing over on here. In fact, I don't even have the FabFilter one over there as well. Right, let's turn the automation off. So what I really want is to have all my mastering, as it were, on the actual track itself. So what I've done is I've grouped all my, all the different channels here. I've grouped them all and I've put them under another group, a master bus, which is essentially what you would normally do over down here on the master channel. I've put everything over here so that I can have this track playing normally without any effects at all, and I can have my track itself fully mastered and being and using all the various things that there are down there simultaneously. So I don't need to keep swapping or soloing a channel or soloing a group or muting something and going back and forward. I can actually listen to a perfectly well mastered song with the mastering of my song that's in the middle there, the rainbow section. So let's get into what I've actually got there. So first things first, and I always have this, is the utility. This is one of those stock Ableton plugins that simply just controls the volume in terms of what I need it to do. The interesting thing is that you can switch the bass to be just mono. So there is a technical explanation for this, but basically bass frequencies are harder to judge where they are in space. There's more to it than that, right? But you can prove this at home by placing your subwoofer kind of anywhere in the room, and it'll be a lot harder to detect where that bass, that sub, is coming from. So if you've got a 7.1 surround sound system, on your home theater at home, yeah, you can move it to the left or the right or the center, and it'll be hard to judge actually where it is coming from. You will be able to, audiophiles will be able to, of course, but, compared to a left speaker and a right speaker, or a top speaker or a rear speaker or something like that, you can definitely not, spatially recognize where it's coming from as much as everything else. So you don't need, therefore, really stereo bass. Yeah, mono bass is absolutely completely fine, and it's actually going to save a little bit of space in the track, in those frequencies, in the headroom that you have that you're going to need for your track, by switching it over to a mono bass. So all you do there is really just set the frequency here to the same as, generally I would set it to the same as my my kick or my sub. So for that, it's going to be 65 hertz. So over here, we're just going to change that down there to 65 there, and that should, remove a lot of information there that is unneeded. You could actually raise that slightly up and actually go with your bass in your green channel here, which would be slightly higher. But yeah, there we go. So that is the utility, and it comes, it's in here somewhere. Yeah, it's in one of these down here, or actually no, it's in a different section, isn't it? But yeah, it's in one of those in there. Right, next I would say is the EQ8. So this is another stock plugin which shows you essentially the let me turn all of these off. Yeah, so you can see here, this shows you essentially the frequency of your song, right? So you can see here it's obviously going from the low frequencies on the left to the high frequencies on the right, which in my song here, in this set here, equates to going from yellow to blue up at the top. So you can imagine yellow frequencies are down here, green are here, kind of tealy, aqua kind of colours are here, blue is up at this top range here. So I'm kind of trying to mirror, the frequencies that are there in a kind of in graph format with the colouring that I've got vertically in my actual set. All I really do in my master chain is I just click on the very last one, which is set at 5 kilohertz, and I just raise that up slightly. I think in drum and bass you tend to think in the lower frequencies, maybe. You tend to think in the sub, kick, bass, snare frequencies, which are kind of like the left-hand side of the graph, let's call it there. And maybe not as much in the top end. For me, historically, the top end has always been vocals and like a lead or something like that, right? So maybe it's a deficiency of me that I tend to not think about what instruments and things that I've got in those top frequencies, and therefore I personally just bump those up slightly, just to so that when I put them on the decks and I've got two songs going at the same time, whatever I do have in the vocals or the lead can still come through, because it's like literally louder, than it should be, compared to like some of the other stuff. So I don't know, maybe that sounds like a bad thing that I'm doing there, but I've found that just gives me a little extra brightness in the song, and therefore puts it in the same kind of pantheon as all the other songs that I'm using to mix with. Pantheon is a big word as well for Sunday morning when I haven't even had a coffee. So, cheers. Right then, let's get on to what else I've got here. So yeah, we went over the Pro Q3, which you'll see is essentially doing a very, very similar job to the EQ8, But of course, you can now actually then go in and start like messing around with like how you want your frequencies to actually um, be, brought down or raised up or reactive or yeah, loads of other kind of stuff that you can do with that. We'll get onto that in a little bit anyway. I've just messed it up and you can't undo. So come on, no, you can't undo that. Great, thanks FabFilter. Right, in terms of anything else, right, let's have a look through my plugins list. So Ace Studio is a, what do we call it now? A MIDI AI vocal plugin. I think we should do an entire stream just about that and how to use AI in your music. Yeah, it's pretty complicated and pretty brand new, so I think let's cover that in a completely different stream. Then we've got the FabFilter plugin. So DS is essentially as it says, a de-esser. So if you've got vocals, essentially you can use this to just remove a few frequencies. Like Soothe is a really good other plugin. It doesn't do exactly the same kind of thing, but it's meant for vocals, right? So I don't have any vocals on this one, so I'm not using it. But yeah, there's various options to use here, and a bunch of different presets as well that you can use there. So highly recommend it if you are doing vocals. Let's get rid of that. L2 is a good kind of way of either of gaining your music. So let's take a look here. Like, and mine is absolutely cranked up way beyond what it should do there, so maybe not the best example there, but you can raise up frequencies and limit them in various different ways here as well. So yeah, L2 is pretty industry standard, I would say, to use a lot of the time. I do mine in a different way, I think, nowadays. I used to use L2 kind of all the time, not quite so much now. And then Q3, which we've just gone through just now. Hoffer, right, so Hoffer, the one that they have a suite of different plugins here. The one I use all the time, though, is their LUFS meter. So here, let me make this bigger. Oh, is that as big as it goes? Oh my god. Alright, okay, well it's slightly bigger for you watching on the stream. This essentially tells you how loud your track in terms of perceived loudness. So not decibel level, but in terms of LUFS, which, I mean, there's various ways of monitoring loudness, but LUFS is the one that is quoted by Spotify and Apple and things like that for how loud your music needs to be. So yeah, let's. Why is this not working? Oh, it's not working because I've turned that off. I think this is gonna. Well, I will be quiet whilst the music plays then, so you can see what it's actually doing. Let's reset that. Right, so if you saw there, basically what it's doing is it is monitoring the song over the last, I think it's 4 or 5 seconds, I think it's 5, and basically saying your song might have had a quiet section over here, and then a couple of seconds later it was like really loud. So what is not the average, it does a slightly more complex calculation there, but what is the perceived loudness of this song? Now, you generally want, for drum and bass at least, I've found, that minus 4.5 is correct. So if I did a song, well, any of my kind of previous songs, in fact, let's load a previous song up. You get to see all the things I've been working on. All right, let's choose this one. Generally, if I put a song on the decks, you will see by the volume lights that you should, one, never be going into the red, obviously, but usually you go one notch into the amber. And therefore, that is usually minus 4.5. So I've tried to match all of my tracks to the songs that everyone is putting out. So whether that is Tantrum Desire or Shock One or Culture Shock or Subfocus, you know, they're all around the minus 4.5. Some are cranked way higher, you know. I don't think that's needed. I think there is this kind of like loudness wars, which is kind of going on in drum and bass. I don't know whether it's happening in other genres right now. But yeah, there is a loudness war of like how loud you can crank your music so that when you're listening on the radio and then yours comes in, it's just perceptively a little louder, and you kind of like wake up a little bit more and notice it a little bit more, which is silly, really. And also, a lot of the platforms kind of dampen that down anyway. They have their own limiting, whether that's on like a radio station or whether that's through Apple or whatever. You know, there's volume limiting things as part of their own, part of the actual platform itself. So you are arguably fighting a losing battle there. But definitely in terms of putting it on the decks and playing it out via speakers, you do want to be in the same realm as everyone else there. So here's another song. This is Quit You, which I released earlier this year, and you'll see here, again, I'll shut up so you can just play a little bit of it, and you should see this hitting minus 4.5. So yeah, you saw it was slightly lower, and then over time, as it's evaluating the song and listening to what was happening previously and now, it's then averaging out at a minus 4.5. So you do want to, be changing your track and giving enough headroom so that you can crank it right up. I mean, this is just for drum and bass, right? For other genres, it may be different numbers. For other genres which are, oh God, am I going to say this? Other genres which aren't quite as technical? Ooh, that's going to give me some flames in the comments. Then, yeah, you may not be worrying about this as much, but certainly in drum and bass, which is aggressive and loud and going for it and fast, it is a thing, you should be looking at. Okay, in fact, let's just stay in this track here. So, we were going down the list, weren't we? So, Isotope, right, so I was just about to go to that anyway, but Ozone 11 is, I would say, one of the best kind of groups of products that there is out there. You know, they've got quite a lot of various items, various plugins that they do separately here, but then actually putting the full whack on there with all the various items within it here, it just works really, really well, and you can just add more from the list there. So as a kind of chain within a chain, so as a series of plugins which are all under an Ozone bus, which is then inside your master, a bus within a bus essentially, I found this is my preferred way of working. So, you can see here there's various things that it is doing in terms of EQ. So this is almost when I was saying that I don't use Q3 as much. This is because I'm doing it in here, especially because you've got the difference between dynamic EQ and normal EQ here. Like, I prefer to work in this. I just find it, I don't know, I just like having everything in the list there and feeling like it's all part of the same family. So it's got a bunch of different things to do with making things a little bit more punchy, especially in the top end, as I was saying earlier. Like, I felt deficient in the top end maybe previously, so I try to bring it back and correct it here. In terms of imaging, which is essentially how, well, actually we can go through that in a later stream, actually, how wide your music is. So if you're listening and you've got your eyes closed, is the music and the sounds coming from like directly in front of you, or does it feel like it's coming through from the left and the right as well, or even behind? And I say behind because when I did my album and mastered it, I did master it in 7.1. So there is 7.1 plugins that we can go through at a later date. But yeah, imaging is essentially making sure that, well, it's giving me the feeling that, especially coming from orchestra and band, where you are very used to, standing in a concert and looking at the stage and knowing that the lead guitarist is on the left or the right, the bass guitarist is on the other side, the drummer is way at the back there, the keyboard is over on the left hand side, the backing singers are over on the right. That spatial awareness, and therefore having your music feel either narrow or wide. Having it narrow in the build up to the drop, and then making it go wide for the drop. That is something again to kind of start thinking about. The very simple version of this is that over here on the right hand side, you can set your instruments to either be negative numbers or that they are positive numbers. So they can either be over on the left hand side or the right hand side. I've actually just clicked on the wrong thing there, haven't I? But yeah, you can set those so that they can be you can literally have instruments on the left hand side or the right hand side and control it there, but I prefer to do it within the imaging, the imager within Ozone itself. Clarity is just another kind of like way of making sure that things pop a little bit. Stabilizer, I don't think I'm actually doing anything on this one. They're all set to the defaults, I believe. Yeah, I'm not actually doing anything there. And then the maximizer is essentially doing a little bit of extra compression, let's say, and gain staging. So raising it up by, I think this is 1.5. It's actually raising it up by, to basically just try and get the most out of your track. Compressing what it can beyond the dynamic EQ and the normal EQ. That's why it's in the last in the chain. Matching the LUFS that you actually want to hit as well, and just trying to crank everything as loud as it is possible without distorting everything. So the only thing I do here is I set my LUFS to slightly lower than what I actually want it to be over on the track itself, which is why it is 6 LUFS, but then you're taking away 1.5, which actually leaves you with minus 4.5 LUFS, which is what the number that I want. And all I do here is I actually use the built-in AI within Ozone to just learn the automatic gain that it should be doing automatically there. So I don't do anything on the maximizer at all. I just press that button and it just works every single time, which is great. So that is Ozone. I mean, we could do a whole stream on just going into every single thing there and just clarifying what I meant with everything and just going into a bit more detail. But Ozone is so useful. Like, you have to get it. I say that I haven't upgraded to Ozone 12, which is out already. It has been for a while. I'm waiting to it's 2025 now. There'll be Ableton, new version of Ableton out. There'll be Ableton 13. There'll be Ozone 13. I'm going to wait until then to upgrade. No point doing it all the time. Right, on to the next bit. Auto pitch. So if you have vocals and you are receiving them dry, so i.e. you are receiving the vocals straight out of the microphone without any kind of adjustment being made either by the vocalist themselves or their engineer, who may want to just tweak them in case they couldn't reach certain notes or to tidy things up a little bit. Auto pitch is a great way of doing that. So yeah, you can mess around with a bunch of different things here. Automatically detect the key or set the key yourself in there. I don't think I've even... Yeah, this is a free version because I don't generally use that personally. I use something else. Nicky Romero, Kickstart. So Kickstart is brilliant for just setting the frequencies really, really well on items. So this is great for, well, I'm being very generic, but it's mainly used obviously for your kick and your bass and making sure that they don't clash. And you can change the various way of that it reacts to this. So you may have a kick that happens, and therefore you want to put this on your bass, so it kind of like ducks it down and then brings it back in there. So you do get the kick of the drum, and then very, very, very shortly after you didn't then get the bass. So it's just a way of shaping. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a way of shaping the way that the sound comes out. So it's brilliant. I think I got it for free. Made by Nicky Romero, obviously, legend in the scene. So yeah, I think it's widely used actually. Very, very cool. Another drink of coffee quickly. Hope everyone is enjoying this. By the way, Microshift. Ooh, that was close. Microshift is great for vocals. So again, if you've got vocals in your track that have come in dry and haven't had anything done to them, Microshift is a brilliant way of kind of like, you know, choosing one of these presets or making your own and just giving it a different vibe, a different, just adding a little bit of echo or enhancing certain frequencies that you can, you know, find where your singer is in the frequencies, tune that to there, say how wet you want it to be or how dry, you know, add in delay or not. This is brilliant. Like, you can really change how a vocal sounds with this. I think I use vocal clarity quite a lot, which is why I gravitated towards it. The 99% is a good preset when you just want to strip everything back to just the essentials that there are there. So I would generally do that in collaboration with the EQ8 to just fine tune where the important information is on there. Just going back to EQ8 as well, like I did say kind of last time, you know, the EQ8 should really be thought of as your piano. You know, your piano that you have, so that. And you can see that. The reason I say that is because you probably won't be able to see it on the stream here, but if you just grab one of these, down in the bottom left, this section here, it actually tells you what note that is. Yeah, so that is a G sharp in the second octave, and then this is a G sharp in the third octave, and then a G sharp in the fourth octave. So as soon as you know, coming from physical instruments like a piano, as others may be doing, the sooner you can think of the frequency spectrum as a keyboard like that, and therefore know that when you are playing something via MIDI, you know, any of these MIDI notes here, as soon as you can think of those as the notes that are being played are coming through on the frequency spectrum, then you can really then start to think of, well, I don't want anything else. Why have I got like notes being played down here that I don't need, right? And that's why I showed last time, I'm really picking out those notes or those sections of notes by, you know, drastically increasing the EQ on them so that I can physically see as well, like, oh, that's note being played, that note's being played, and nothing else, or very little else there. So yeah, anyway, we went over EQ8 before, but yeah, I found that it's a way of thinking about your music and MIDI and frequencies in a very classical way. It's just to treat it like, you know, the notes on a keyboard across the various octaves. Wow, that was a load of waffle, wasn't it? Right, Splice. Don't really use Splice much. I grab Serum presets from there, and I grab the occasional sample, but I think there's an argument to be said that if you're using Splice samples, especially vocals, they've probably been heard on a million other songs, so generally I wouldn't use them. I would use them maybe as reference or use them in the background somewhere, but not kind of not within the song, like as your main lead or your main whatever, right? Serum presets are different. Those are instruments, right? And we'll get into that. In fact, let's go get into that now. So Serum is already loaded on there. This is what I use for all my instruments. Now there are absolutely creatives out there. Oh, that doesn't look very good when I scale it up. Yeah, there are creatives out there, musicians, producers, etc., that will fine tune all of these things and therefore be making their own sounds, etc. Which is absolutely fine. As a musician, I don't want to learn how to make a trumpet. I just want to know how to play it, right? So therefore, my ethos is that I will occasionally go in here, and you should know how to use this. You should know how to, change the sound of something, and shape it, how you want, etc. But yeah, for me, because I'm generally new to, making music, and there are people out there who are way more talented than me on this, who are using Splice to distribute and culture samples, who are using their Splice to distribute their own Serum presets that they've used well in widely popular and released song. I am therefore using quite a lot of presets that are already made by absolute legends in the scene, and as a way to get up to speed and make music that even you yourself feels like it is comparable with those that other people put out there already, I think Serum is a fantastic way of kind of jumping the gun there and getting something listenable, something half decent, straight off the bat. Let me see if I can get this back to 100%. Oh, that's going to annoy me if I don't get it to 100. Come on, get it to 100. 101. Oh, no. Oh, damn it. Okay. Anyway, right. That is Serum. Where were we on the list? Universal Music Compressor. I've just got this the other day. Part of the Pete Tong DJ Academy. There was a free giveaway a couple of weeks ago. Looks fine. Haven't really used it much. I used it on one song, on one remix I did recently. Did the job. You could equally use compressor as well, but this is quite nice. I like the dials and everything. It's quite good. Valhalla Supermassive. This is for essentially adding all sorts of crazy echo and reverb into your tracks. They have some amazing presets here as well. The one I generally go for it's one of these. Yeah, one of these like big hall ones. Yeah, some really, really good ones anyway. No, it wasn't. It was one of these actually. Yeah, anyway. I think it was cheap. I think it might have even been free. Maybe it was free. The other one is there's Valhalla. There's another plugin by Valhalla as well, which is used by a lot of people. But Supermassive is fantastic. Serum we just went over, and then EXO. Okay, let's go into this. So EXO, is this even going to work? I can't. Well, this shows you how little I've used this. EXO on paper sounds good, right? But I've yet to find a really good use for it, and I can't make it bigger, unfortunately. There probably is a way to do it. This essentially has taken all your samples and has mapped them in on this grid to help you find samples within the same sphere. So down here in red should be all kind of like bass sounds. You can barely hear that, I think, probably. And then here, a lot higher, these are kind of like snary sounds, and I'm presuming that green is like your tops. Yeah, your hi-hats and things like that. So it's a good way of finding you know, instruments within the same kind of spectral band, almost like we've done with the coloration of the channels there. It's done a similar kind of like thing here. Different colors though. Maybe I'll need to tweak my colors to match theirs. But yeah, it's not. I have yet to find a use for this. But if you're trying to find a snare, then you know that, and you've already got one, then you can at least just kind of like move around here and try and find a different, you know, snare here, as opposed to going into your, you know, your sounds and then finding your, you know, your snares. I haven't even used any of the default ones here. I'll go into my list here. So going into here, like typing in snare, and then going through individual folders to try and find the snare that you want from either that folder or going into this folder here. Like, you can already see how tiresome it is to actually, you know, do that. So yeah, it's a different way of kind of organizing your samples, but yeah, I've yet to kind of like use that myself personally. That is about it, except for compressor, which let me try and find a track where I'm actually using it. My new track actually has it on there. Yeah, compressor is used mostly for me for side chaining. So so when you've got a track here and you actually want to say, actually, I want you to dip this channel here when the, I don't know, the kick happens there, and I want to dip it by, you know, a certain amount here. That is, you know, my default compressor. There are others, as we obviously went through, but that is the best one I particularly use. So that's it. I think we've gone over all the plugins that I generally use. Some are going to be a bit wishy-washy, as I'm sure you can appreciate. You know, you use it for one thing only, and that's about it. And therefore, you know, my knowledge of what else it does is, you know, I'm still learning there, right? But I know that if I want to dip a certain frequency, I use this or that. If I want to compress and sidechain, I use this or that. If I want to master something, I use this or that. If I want to set the, you know, the bass through mono, I use this or that. So it's a combination. So my master chain, as it were, is very simple. Mostly, as I said, using Ozone 8 with everything then inside that. So if you can imagine, each of these 7 things would actually be all the way along there. Normally, they're actually just under one particular group there. But yeah, that's about it, really. So, hope that was of interest. Hopefully you can see that with the template that I now have, and the plugins that I showed, which basically allow you to do everything you need to and master it yourself, you can get from 0 to full speed very, very quickly. My way of working now is I have that template with the incoming song and the outgoing song. Everything in the middle changes, yeah, so all of that stuff that I showed last time with the kind of like the basic drums and the basic, you know, layout for everything gets changed within there. So, you know, the drums don't stay the same every single song, otherwise that'd be rubbish and you'd be able to hear that. But getting up to speed very quickly, like almost instead of having a blank piece of paper, that is absolutely fantastic. And then throwing on the plugins that I showed today, so that you can immediately crank the volume, you can immediately compress something, you can immediately gain something, you can immediately check that the volume level is correct, that you can then use Serum to write all your music using instruments that have already been proven out there in the real world. And then you can go into Ozone and actually then start mastering yourself to get at least a pretty good, you know, facsimile of what it might sound when it's been like properly mastered. Yeah, this is super quick now. So ask in the comments if there's something that you've heard of somebody using There's definitely things that I don't use, like Decapitator and Soothe, which I mentioned earlier, that I know are pretty commonly used, but I personally don't. So yeah, throw down if you've heard of something or something you feel like I'm missing, like, oh my god, I can't believe you're missing out on that particular plugin. But yeah, hopefully this has been useful. And next time we're going to take a step out of Ableton and we're going to go through all the websites and platforms that I use in my music making. Kind of what is my daily newspaper that I read? What are the sites that I go to and the things that I check and the metrics and analytics that I hold myself to that motivate me and allow me to kind of like keep on track and keep on top of, you know, what is happening with my released music and basically how I go about my business, as it were. So yeah, thanks for joining today. See you next time, and yeah, if you can give the video a like or even subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, hopefully this was useful, and I will see you next time.